Hi, I'm Kesenya and welcome to another free astrology lesson. Today we are looking at Uranus's transit through the 11th house and what that can bring into our lives. Now, how do we know if we are having a Uranus transit to the 11th house? Excellent question. So the way we figure this out is by firstly knowing what our rising sign is, what our ascendant sign is. So if you don't know what your ascendant sign is, well, I would recommend popping over to astro.com, plugging in your details. You will need your birth time, and you will end up finding a chart that has the symbol AC on the, as you look at it, on your left-hand side over here. So as you're looking, the left-hand side, there will be a symbol AC and a line running through, in this case, we'd be running through Cancer, and that will tell you what your rising sign is. Wherever the AC, whatever sign it falls in, that is your rising sign. Once you know that, in whole sign astrology, you can calculate where your 11th house is, and we do that by counting 11 sign placements, because in whole sign astrology, a sign is a house. One sign, as you can see in the chart here, equals a house or a realm of life or a realm of influence on our lives. So in this case, I've got Cancer here marked as the first house, and the whole sign of Cancer, if the AC is running here through the middle, that makes the whole sign of Cancer the first house. Leo is the second, Virgo the third, Libra the fourth, Scorpio the fifth, Sagittarius the sixth, Capricorn the seventh, Aquarius the eighth, Pisces the ninth, Aries the 10th, and Taurus is the 11th for anyone with Cancer rising. Now you can work out where your 11th house is if Virgo was your rising sign, or if Sagittarius was your rising sign, whatever, by counting, like I've just done, the number of signs from the first house position, the AC position. That will tell you your 11th house. And then if you want to know if Uranus is there, pop over to planetwatcher.com, and that will tell you where the planets are right now. And you'll be able to work out, okay, I'm Cancer rising, that means Taurus is my 11th house. Is Uranus in the sign of Taurus? And if it is, then you have a Uranus transit happening to your 11th house. And it just so happens that for anyone with Cancer rising, they are having a Uranus transit to their 11th house for the next 7 years. Uranus transits through the entire chart over a period of 84 years roughly, and therefore he spends 7 years at a time in any given sign. So we have a once in a lifetime opportunity to deal in a Uranian way with that area of our life. It is a 7-year period, but it's once in a lifetime, once and once only for most people, because 84 years is pretty much the course of any human lifetime. Some people live longer, some people live shorter, but generally speaking, we're living into our 80s these days. So we can expect to have, if we live a normal human lifespan, we can expect to have one transit of Uranus to every single area of our lives represented by each of the house placements. So what does Uranus bring? Well, wherever he goes, he brings liberation, he brings freedom, he makes us more authentic in that area of life. He causes us to rebel a little in order to discover what our parameters are, what our boundaries are, what we will and won't tolerate. So we get a little bit rebellious, a little bit defiant, a little bit revolutionary in that area of life. And the ultimate purpose of Uranus is to make us more true and authentic to our life's purpose, what we incarnated to become, to be, to present, you know, instead of living under the societal expectations, the parameters that our very Saturnian third dimensional realm earthly life puts on us. Uranus wants us to burst through that and be more authentic to our divine nature within us. And so he does that by sometimes sending shocking events, unexpected events, things that shatter us and get us out of our comfort zone. And Uranus is a planet of change. Wherever he goes, he brings a lot of upheavals, a lot of change. Now, if you're a person who likes change, like me, then Uranus transits, they're like, bring it on, love it, bring it on. But if you are someone who's very fixed and I don't want to budge, I'm not moving, I'm sticking in here, then Uranus transits feel like hell. So it all depends on your personal attitude, whether you're good at going with the flow or you're welcoming of change or not, as to whether this is going to be a transit of joy or a transit of veil of tears for you. But generally speaking, when we're having an 11th house transit of Uranus, it is beneficial and it leaves good results, because Uranus, by connection with the sign Aquarius, Aquarius is connected to the 11th house. They're all tied together. And so the themes of the 11th house are similar to the themes that Uranus is comfortable with, that Uranus knows. So there's a real tie here, and it's actually a great place for Uranus and a very beneficial transit to have. So now that we've explained how to find your 11th house, how to find Uranus and where Uranus currently is, what Uranus is all about, we're going to have a look at what it means to have him transit the 11th house. So the major themes for the 11th house are friendships and social groups. It's about humanitarian work and humanitarian organizations, communal kind of ideologies. It's about, everybody protesting climate change, as what's recently happened in 2019 when I recorded this. So it's about caring for the wider society, the community as a whole. It's a very individual planet. Uranus is very individualized, but it's also very much about the equality of man and your individuality as well as my individuality, and the ability for us all to connect as one and achieve better things, more progressive things for society as a whole. So it's very much about, I guess you'd call them the hoi polloi, the everyday common people, not about the kings and queens in the 11th house. It's about the common people and society as an organism. So it's about friendships, social groups, social organizations, society as an organism. There's no hierarchies in the 11th house, as opposed to the 10th house, which is very much about hierarchy. The 11th house is not. The 11th house is very much about no particular head. So anarchism would be something that would fit with 11th house ideas, where we're all one and we're all a brotherhood. And it's about connecting together and working together to make the world a better place and so on. It's very visionary. It's very much connected to your hopes and your dreams and your aspirations. It's a house of rewards and gains where you can receive back for the work that you've done. So you might, in the 11th house, if you're having an influential transit, you might receive some sort of a Order of Australia, or a some recognition in some way, some notoriety, some sort of accolade, some sort of winner prize kind of thing, as well as a promotion and financial remuneration and financial reward as well. So there's the influence of rewards and gains with this house. There's also dreams and aspirations and goals that we see from our 11th house. What are our dreams? What are our aspirations? What are our goals? And we can determine a lot by the sign and the nature of the sign and the planets that are in natally our 11th house. But we're not here to look at the 11th house from a natal perspective. We're here to look at it from a transit of Uranus perspective. So in 2019, if you are Cancer rising, you are going to have Uranus transiting this placement for the next 7 years. This is where he's going to be doing his Uranian work. After that, he's going to move into the sign of Gemini, and that will mean that anybody who is Leo rising will have a transit to the 11th house of Uranus, and so on and so on. But I've told you how to work that out. But yes, for anyone right at this moment in time, it is a Uranus transit to Taurus, and that is the 11th house for anyone with Cancer rising. So what does this mean? Well, this is a period of time where we can have big breakthroughs regarding our aspirations, regarding our hopes and dreams. Suddenly, maybe we've been aspiring to, I don't know, climb Mount Everest, all our life. That's a dream we've had. I really want to be the next person to climb Mount Everest. And suddenly you get the opportunity. Someone says, hey, I'll back you. You go for it. You know, start training, get ready, because I'm behind you all the way and I'll fund you. You can have a big, sudden, unexpected breakthrough that enables you to accomplish some hopes or dreams or aspirations that you may have cherished for a lifetime. You can become inspired with new ideas and new aspirations for what you would like to achieve in life. Now, Uranus brings, as I mentioned before, really big life change. So you can actually find that your dreams and aspirations sort of fluctuate a bit. You know, one year you might aspire to climb Mount Everest, and the next year your aspiration is to produce an independent film. So you might find that there are different changes and fluctuations to what you are doing in terms of your goals, your dreams and your aspirations, because Uranus likes to mix things up and keep things fresh. Your aspirations might take on a more quirky or eccentric nature. So you might change your aspirations into something that's less mainstream and more alternative. You know, maybe you've always had an aspiration to become a doctor, and that's something you really want to do. And then Uranus transit hits the 11th house, and suddenly you're like, no way, actually, you know what I really want to do? I want to be a Chinese herbalist. I want to do acupuncture. And you go down a more alternative route for your hopes and your dreams and your aspirations. So there can be a more quirky note, or a more eccentric, or even a little bit more of a rebellious nature to your dreams and your aspirations. And well, yeah, I might talk about it in a minute. There's somebody I want to talk about who inspires me with their Uranian eccentricity and quirkiness and brilliance. And but I'll talk about him in a second when we're talking about communities, communal stuff. So your dreams and goals, they can also be electrified by Uranus. Uranus rules electricity, and he can give us a zap, quite figuratively, with regard to our dreams and aspirations. You know, we might have been total lazy ass with regard to our dreams. You know, maybe we've thought, oh yeah, I wouldn't mind playing in a band one day. I'm pretty good on the drums. Yeah, that'd be really good. And we just don't do anything about it. And Uranus can come along and zip, suddenly we get inspiration out of nowhere. You know what? I'm going to be a drummer. I'm going to be the next Ringo Starr, or I don't know, whoever the other drummers are. I'm a big Beatles fan. But you can get really inspired about being a drummer all of a sudden, even though it's been an aspiration of yours, but you've been too lazy to actually get on with the job. So your dreams and goals can become very much electrified through this transit, or refreshed. Maybe you've had a dream or an aspiration and it just hasn't been manifesting, and you're a bit worn out with it, and it's like, you know, I've tried and tried, nothing's happened. And along comes Uranus transit to the 11th house, and this dream suddenly gets refreshed. It's like, yep, now I'm invigorated again. I've got the energy to put into this again. I really want to do this again, and I haven't even thought about it for years, so let's go. You can actually also, with Uranus transit to the 11th house, be a lot more experimental with regard to your dreams and goals. So you might dabble in a bit of this and dabble in a bit of that, and sort of mix it up. Maybe you go and make an independent film about climbing Mount Everest while you're sitting up the top of Mount Everest drumming out a drum solo or something. Like, you might dabble in a lot of different things that are really kooky and really unexpected. So it's actually quite an wouldn't that be crazy? Maybe you could take a tribal Tibetan drum or something, a drum up the top of the Mount Everest. But this is what Uranus can do. It can really make us more experimental and more willing to try a whole gamut of different things that pertain to our interests or our dreams and our goals for life. Now, I've been quite eclectic with the references to dreams and goals, but your dreams and goals might simply be to manage the store where you work one day, or my dream and goal might be, you know, I want to win the Nobel Peace Prize or something like that. That gorgeous little 11-year-old, I think she's 11, she might be a little bit older, but who's orchestrated all the global warming marches around the world, who's been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Well, she could very well be having a Uranus transit to her 11th house at the moment, and here she is nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. So what she's done is hugely Uranian, and yeah, and here she is getting rewards and gains for that. She's a very good illustration of this kind of a transit. Actually, I'd be very intrigued. If anybody knows her birth date and time, then let me know. I'd love to see what her chart is. But back to the issue at hand. So rewards and gains can come in a more traditional sense. They don't have to be eccentric rewards and gains, such as the victory you feel when you climb Mount Everest. It can be sort of Nobel Peace Prizes, or it can be a promotion at work, or becoming a manager. These are rewards for the efforts and gains that we've put in life. So moving right along, we can actually wake up during this transit to the role that we can now play in society. And that lovely little girl who started those protests, she's a really great example. Like, she has really risen up with awareness, I guess, of the role that she can play in changing society, despite the fact that she's young. And it's fantastic, you know. She's woken up. I would really be if she's not having a 11th house Uranian transit, I would kind of be surprised. Like, she's really stepped up to her role in society, or woken up to her role in society with a Uranian type activity, making a social protest. This is very Uranian in the 11th house. So now this same sort of thing can happen to you. It might not happen on such a large scale, but it can certainly play out that you suddenly wake up to how you contribute to making society better. What can I do? How can I be a part of the societal organism that's going to make a better world? You can really be invigorated about that. You might also be inspired to improve or radicalize or shake up or invigorate society in some way, like she has done. But I also want to talk about a gentleman that I find utterly inspiring. Back in the 70s in Australia, there was a man named Leonard, I think Leonard Casey, and he was a farmer in Western Australia, and he was sick and tired of the West Australian government and the wheat board hierarchies and all that stuff, changing the goalposts regarding what they were going to pay for his wheat. And he got absolutely fed up with, working hard to produce good quality wheat, and then the West Australian Wheat Board would change the pay rate, or he wouldn't get as big a return, or there'd be some kind of difficulty. And he said, enough of this. I've had enough of this hierarchy dictating what I do, how I function, how my business runs. And he hired a good friend who was quite a brilliant mind, great artist as well. But he hired a very good friend who was involved in the legal profession, and together they discovered a way that they could secede from the Commonwealth. And so he could say see you later to the being part of Australia and part of the Australian government. And this is what he did. He became Prince Leonard. He had to give himself a title, and his wife became Queen Shirley. He's recently, RIP, passed away at age 93, just in the last couple of months. But he established what it became known as Hutt River Province, which was his rather large farm in Western Australia, and they became a micronation. And he really thumbed it to the government, the federal government, the West Australian government, and indeed the Commonwealth, by becoming his own micronation. And what he set in motion was a flurry, if you like, of people who did the same thing. They established their own countries by seceding from the Commonwealth. And part of the thing that he needed to do was declare war on the country that he lived in, which was Australia. And at that time, Australia took it as just a big stupid joke, because they didn't understand the legalities of it, and they took it as some kind of a joke, and so they never did anything about this declaration of war. So after 3 or 4 days, Prince Leonard was able to declare victory, and in doing so, then therefore filled the parameters, if you like, of the requirements to secede from the Commonwealth. I love this guy. I honestly think he is magnificent, and if I had the opportunity to do the same thing, I most certainly would. But he is a fine example of someone who at the time shook up and invigorated society in a very revolutionary way. and he, like I said, caused a flurry of micronations all over the globe because people were like, oh my God, I'm going to do that. I can do that. Oh, wow, there's a loophole in the legalities. Let's do it. And so this happened, and he became his own independent nation, and lots of people followed suit. Unfortunately, they must have plugged up the gap in some way because we don't see that happening any longer. No doubt they've closed that loophole, God damn it. But yeah, he is a very Uranian type of action there to sort of say your restrictions, your hierarchies, they are not in my best interest, so I am rebelling and changing society. So that's something that's a very extreme case that I absolutely love that story. My aspirations and my 11th house goals and dreams. So what am I saying here? He has shaken up and invigorated society through this movement, and you can do the same thing. Now, I'm not saying that we can all run out and start a micronation now, more's the pity, but we can shake up and invigorate society in some type of way during this transit. So it might be simply hosting a march on the local state parliament to, to protest the way they're handling climate change. It might be a protest, about how the education department is running in your local community. It could be anything where you are revolutionizing, being a little bit rebellious, but invigorating your society in some way that is beneficial. Following on from that, with this transit, we tend to gain a more humanitarian focus to life. Actually, we are more connected with the brotherhood of man, the equality of all people, and societal equality as well. So seeking out balance for the I can never get it right, LGBTQ, I think I've got it right, community. Seeking out equality there would be something you could, a real cultural movement that you could get behind, that you could enjoy, that you could participate in and be very passionate about, regardless of whether you are part of that community or not. We can still all help one another, because this transit is about the brotherhood of man, uniting with other people for humanitarian causes, for equality, for recognition of maligned people, and so on and so on. The unity of all people is a very big theme in the 11th house with Uranus there. We also have the possibility of being drawn to more communal style living, actually, with this transit. So, kibbutzes or sustainable alternative communities, communes, that sort of thing. I mean, as our society becomes more Uranian generally, I think we're going to see a lot more of these sorts of things popping up. For example, single mothers might, and probably a wise thing to do, might decide to join forces and all put in and buy a property together, because it's so hard to buy your own home when you're a single mother. We might get communes of single mothers putting in money to buy a property together where they can raise children, with other people around them and other mothers around them, and all helping each other out to achieve life goals, life dreams, like having your own home, a place where you can grow your own veggies or whatever. There is a definite emphasis on alternative communities that can pop up with Uranus transit to the 11th house. And like I said, the move into the age of Aquarius in general, we're going to see a lot more of this. Less coupling, less, less one-on-one, and more communal style living. There's also a big focus, if you're Cancer rising now, on collective well-being, and this often involves thumbing our nose to the conventional approaches, and this is why we can see more communal living, more sustainable alternative communities, that sort of thing, because there's a kind of collective thumbing your nose. Okay, society doesn't allow for single mothers to be able to purchase their own home. Sucks to that, thumb your nose to that, And we're going to go start our own, have our own way of doing home that enables us to have our dream come true, So like I said, collective well-being that thumbs its nose to convention. Hippie communities, if you want to call them that. I mean, it has terrible connotations, the idea of a hippie commune and stuff like that, but that's why I choose to use sustainable alternative community. But that is another way of thumbing your nose to conventional society and saying, we're not happy with the way things are going in conventional society, so we're going to do it the way that we all agree is better, the way that we're united about, and you want to make sure you are if you're going to go join one of those communes, Probably why I like the idea of Prince Leonard, because he just did it his own way. Thank you very much. Come and join me if you want to, but I'm doing this, which is actually quite Uranian as well, very independent. But they're moving along. There can be a restructuring of friendships, of friendship groups, your association with different societies. There's a letting go of anything that's not liberating, not freeing, not authentic with regard to social connections. So you might have been part of a social group for years that you found, invigorating, and then along comes Uranus's transit to the 11th house, and you're like, oh my God, those people are so stuck in the past, and I want to move forward. I think I need to change my circle of friends. I think I need to join a new society or a new group because it's just not fulfilling me anymore. And you sort of progress and move beyond your friendship groups, your social groups. But this is going to happen organically. Like I said, this is not a difficult transit where you've got so much upheaval and roller coaster and my God, what's happening? Uranus in the 11th house, it feels comfortable, it feels right. So you'll have opportunities to start hanging out with more vivacious types of people, more independently minded people, unconventional people, and your social circles will be more like this as well. So it's going to be like an organic growth process or a birth process, if you want to call it that, of letting go of one type of social friendship connection and being organically grown or birthed into a different type of social circle or friendship circle. And you're actually going to be more interested in developing friendships with people who are more spiritual, more Uranian, more into astrology, more into science and progressive ideas. You'll be more interested in friendship groups like, you might join a quantum mechanics interest group or something like that. It's very Uranian. I'd love to do that if there was one in my town. Or you might, go and join the Astronomical Society that goes out for field trips every couple of weeks or whatever. And, you're going to want to connect with people in Uranian fields. Uranian fields are anything scientific, like a quantum mechanics group or a cosmology group or an astronomical society or anything that's connected to science, but anything connected to aeronautics and flying, anything to do with planes, even if it's model planes, like there's still the Uranian influence there. Anything astrological, anything spiritual, energy healing kind of stuff, energy work, dealing with the tarot, dealing with metaphysics, looking into conspiracy theories and anything like that. It's all going to be very appealing for you to want to connect socially, not just study it for your own interest, but connect socially with people who are interested in those fields. You'll want to get out and be a part of those sorts of alternative groups. And particularly as for anyone with Cancer rising in 2019, for the next 7 years, this is happening in the sign of Taurus. So you're probably going to be very attracted to groups that are about sustainability and organic living and connecting with the earth and connecting with nature and so forth, like the climate change type people who are really wanting to protect and care for the earth. So that's, for you guys, probably quite pertinent for the next 7 years. You can lose friends suddenly with this transit, and shockingly, and for no apparent reason, because Uranus brings sudden changes, the unexpected changes. And when I say lose friends, I don't mean they're all going to suddenly die, but you might, your best friend might move to the other side of the country. And it doesn't mean that she's not your best friend, but in a sense, you've lost her. She is no longer part of your immediate lifestyle. So that kind of loss can happen out of the blue with your friendships. You might feel like you just don't fit in with your old social circles as well. That you're more progressive now, and I mentioned this a moment ago, that you've moved beyond the old friendship groups. So your social life can receive a Uranian turbo boost, actually. Lots of electrification in the best way from Uranus. Lots more friendships, lots more social interactions. You can really amp up the social life now. So it's a great time to get out and meet people, connect with people, be a part of, movements and cultural ideas, and join new groups. It's really, really great time for connecting socially, like I said, particularly with people who are of a more, let's call them, eccentric nature. We do that because we say eccentric because most of our current earthly reality is very Saturnian, which is about rules and regulations, and this is how you do it, and social expectations and so on. And Uranus is the opposite of that, where it's about liberation and freedom and going against the grain and being a bit left of center. So we kind of lump that under the title of quirky or eccentric, even though it's just intriguing and fascinating and creative and different. And the end result of this transit, so in 7 years' time, for anyone who's Cancer rising, you are going to feel happier and more fulfilled with regard to your relationships, with your personal friendships, not so much sort of the married and the family relationships, but with your friendships and your connection to the society that you live in, your social groups, and therefore yourself. You're going to feel more fulfilled and liberated in terms of your hopes and dreams and aspirations, the rewards and gains that you get. And because of all of this, because of the freedom, the liberation, the breaking of any boundaries in these areas of life, you're going to feel more connected to yourself, connected to community, to the world, to who you are, to the aspirations that you've had. You will have probably achieved a lot of them. It is a powerful, beautiful transit. So for Cancer rising people, this is a lovely period that you're stepping into. Enjoy it. And if you are coming up to this transit down the track, maybe you are Leo rising in 7 years' time and you're embarking on this, or Virgo rising in 21 years' time and embarking on this, wherever you're at, this is a beautiful period, and I hope that you enjoy it and are blessed and grow a great deal through this gorgeous Uranus transit. So thanks for joining me for this trip through the 11th house, and I look forward to our final video for the Uranus transit when he moves through the 12th house in next week's video. So join me for that. Thank you and God bless.